Good afternoon, everyone. So, today we are going to a virtual trip to the Serum Institute. So, the program that follows today is we'll have an introduction, a brief introduction to vaccines, virtual visit to the Serum Institute, interview of a vaccine maker, Dr. Suresh Berry, some glimpse of the Serum Institute, talk to the scientist, Dr. Tushar Lodha, and some question answer sessions where you can directly talk to the scientist. Okay, followed by vote of thanks and a small Google test will also follow. So you are requested to pay attention to whatever is being told to you, explained to you. First of all, I'd like to say that you all should be aware what a vaccine is. A vaccine is a biological preparation that improves immunity to a particular disease. A vaccine typically contains an agent that resembles a disease causing microorganism and is often made from a weakened or a killed form of the microbe. The agent stimulates the body's immune system to identify the agent as foreign and destroy it and keep a record of it. Records are kept in form of memory cells so that the immune system can more easily recognize and destroy any of these microorganisms that it later encounters. It is similar like children, we have our defense system. Similarly, like the soldiers fighting for our nation, we have the soldiers in our body which does not allow the microorganisms to live happily in our system. There is then these vaccines are like you can say they provide us immunity. It is prevention. It's not a cure. It's a prevention. There's some history about the vaccine. The first generation vaccine goes to the time of that is 1796 when Edward Jenner discovered the first vaccine of smallpox. Now, this smallpox vaccine was in a very crude form. It was just like taking the organism from one of the pus cells, you can say, from the blister, and then putting it into the other person. And to his surprise, it was found that the person who has been injected with these pus cells are not developing the disease smallpox. So Edward Jenner discovered the first vaccine. The term vaccine and vaccination are derived from variole vaccinae, that is smallpox of the cow, that is cowpox, and the term devised by Edward Jenner to denote cowpox. Then another, you can say, another vaccine that came into picture was by Louis Pasteur in 1880 when he accidentally discovered a vaccine. That is, he left some culture out in his lab when he was going for a vacation. When he came back, he injected those cultures to his chicken. That is the birds he was working on. And to his surprise, nothing happened to the bird. Then he inoculated some more virulent ones and found out that the birds didn't develop the disease, but they become immune to the disease. So that gave the concept of immunization by vaccination. There are certain types of vaccines. We have live attenuated vaccine that the whole organism is being injected in our body. It can be it is in the living form, but in attenuated form. Attenuated means they are living, but they cannot cause the disease, right? A same organism is repeatedly grown in the labs till it loses its virulence, that is the power to cause the disease. Then there are some inactivated vaccines in which the organism is killed. Then you have subunit vaccines in which some or the other particles of the virus and the bacteria is taken. There are toxoid vaccines, conjugated vaccines, DNA vaccines, and the recombinant vector vaccines. In this recombinant vector vaccines, we do have some other organism genes being incorporated in some that is in our DNA, you can say. Then vaccines which are made in Serum Institute is diphtheria, that is DPT vaccine, BCG vaccine, TTV vaccine. Then you have HIB, that is Haemophilus influenza type B vaccine. Menafrivac, that is meningitis vaccine against meningitis. Then you have the Covishield, that is the vaccine, and many more in the list. You think of a vaccine, and Serum has an option for it. So now we'll have these are the vaccines which are still is going to come in future. You can say these are the vaccines in which the people are still, the researchers, the scientists are still working on. Now we come to a main part, you can say, where we are going to see the Serum Institute. Now, children, first of all, before seeing any video on Serum, I should tell you that there is a strict restriction on taking mobiles to the Serum Institute. And we cannot take the photographs as what we wanted to take because of the safety issues. There were some cyber attacks, so the data is also not available on the public domain for us to use. So keeping that restriction in mind, you see the video.
Serum Institute was founded by a true visionary, Dr. Cyrus Poonawalla, in 1966. As he says, it is our endeavor to make quality vaccines more affordable around the world, because we firmly believe that health should be the right of every child. Today, the company is the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines by number of doses, and a testimony of the quality is the fact that the company's vaccines have been accredited by the World Health Organization, Geneva. 1967 saw the first manufacturing operations for tetanus vaccines in the company that was formed with the aim of manufacturing life-saving immunobiologicals, of which there was a shortage in the country and which were being imported at high prices. Today, the company's product portfolio encompasses a wide array of recombinant, conjugate and combination vaccines. In response to the ever-increasing global demand for high-quality, affordable vaccines, the company is constantly adding to its setup of dedicated, state-of-the-art manufacturing plants, sophisticated laboratories and high-tech quality and R&D departments, which undertake cutting-edge research projects that endeavor to make the world a safer and healthier place to live. The latest production equipments are in place to ensure the highest quality standards. Our R&D endeavors to undertake projects to make the world a safer place to live. The colossal production output, which will soon find its way across the planet, is stored under carefully monitored environmental conditions in huge storage bays. The huge blending vessels of 3,000 liters capacity produce vaccines to the tune of 1 million doses a day. Fully automatic, high-speed vial washing, filling, stoppering and sealing machines ensure both the highest quality standards and quantity of the output. Our institute has the largest computerized facility in India for lyophilization of parenterals. The backbone of the success which the company enjoys is the young, yet experienced, dedicated, highly trained and qualified scientists, microbiologists, pharmacologists and chemists. Focused efforts on the international markets, mainly through WHO, UNICEF, the Pan American Health Organization, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, etc., have enabled the company to export a wide variety of vaccines and antisera to over 170 countries around the world, notably to Asia, Africa and South America, and also to the CEE and CIS states. We are committed to serve global vaccine needs by effecting timely delivery of large volumes of highly perishable cargo at competitive prices and with uncompromising levels of safety and efficacy. The company has been instrumental in saving millions of lives across the globe by supplying billions of doses of vaccines at short notice to control epidemics and also to cater to mass immunization campaigns. The future holds a lot of promise as we are committed to introduce newer technologies and products to contribute to the making of a healthier world. The company will continue its relentless pursuit of trying to conquer diseases. While the accolades come as milestones on this humanitarian journey, Serum Institute of India is steadfast in making Dr. Cyrus Poonawala's dream come true. Serum Institute of India. Protection from birth onwards.
Thank you so much, children, for watching. I hope that was clear enough to show you the exact picture how serum works, right? So going to interview, it is an audio interview. I told you that we had restrictions of taking the videos. So we have an audio interview of Dr. Suresh Berry. Dr. Suresh Berry, he is an additional director of polysaccharide conjugate vaccine in the Serum Institute of India. He has introduced something called a vaccine that was there in what to say, which caused a revolution in Africa. This vaccine, which is also called as Men-Afri-Vac, is a vaccine against meningitis, which was taking a toll of life in Africa. So Serum Institute worked on this and provided these vaccines at very low cost to the African people. He is also working on polysaccharide conjugate vaccine, that is HIB vaccine, Haemophilus influenza type B conjugate vaccine. Freeze dried is lyophilized, that is they are uh, cooled, they are dried at low temperature. This vaccine is recommended for prevention of invasive disease caused by Haemophilus influenza type B for infants and children of 6 weeks through 5 years of age. So now we'll listen to the interview of Dr. Berry.
Can you tell us something about the Serum Institute?
See, Serum Institute is the company which was founded in 1966 by Dr. Poonawala with the motive of developing the anti-snake venom, Siras, which were rare commodities in India at that time, and all these were imported from USA or developed countries. So this is based on that motive we started this company and with anti-Siras, because there is anti-snake venom which is extracted from the horse, because horse is injected with the venom, and then the blood is extracted, and from that serum the anti-snake venom is extracted. This is how it started, and then later on they introduced tetanus toxoid, diphtheria, pertussis, and measles based product, MMR based product, and then they expanded. The founding was in 1966.
Okay, and how did you get yourself here? What was that urge that brought you to Serum Institute?
See, I told you earlier during our discussion, it was an accidental entry into this company. I am basically organic chemist, working in peptide products, developing anti-cancer products for the big companies. I worked with Sun Pharma for 3 years, 2 years. Then I worked with Wockhardt for 5 years. I was making leuprolide, octreotide with the anti-cancer drugs which are used for different therapies. One is for prostate cancer, another is for endometriosis, that octreotide is used. So these were my forte. So the company was looking for a person who can make conjugate vaccines, which was the era coming up. They are used for meningitis, like Haemophilus influenza, meningococcal. So I was approached by our HR people, then HR person, that we are looking for a chemist who understands a bit of biology. This is how I joined this company, and it was like I tell you, good move for me, and that has changed my path, and really it has given me a lot of name and fame while working with the meningococcal A conjugate vaccine, and our company got national level award for this meningococcal A vaccine, which I presented to you. The CDJT award. This is the photograph of that. Receiving it from Harshvardhan, Science Minister, in 2016. So that was the quality of work. And Men vaccine has eradicated. The vaccine is called Menafrivac, and it has eradicated the disease wherever it has been used in African countries. So that was the big achievement for the company and for me also. And consider myself very lucky to be part of that project and part of the Serum Institute, which is involved in so many vaccines. And I have worked in another Haemophilus influenza vaccine, which is still currently I am making it. So we produce almost 100 million doses of hip vaccine every year. So this was an accidental entry, but it was a lucky entry.
So, how long can a vaccine protect us from a virus? And what is the frequency that we need the vaccination?
It depends upon vaccine to vaccine. So some of the vaccines you just need one shot or one dose, like the recommended schedule of 3 dose or 2 dose. Then you don't need vaccine for all of your life. But for some of the vaccine you can need booster doses, like particularly the case of right, where you need in between boosters. Whenever you get wound or infection, you will always take a booster. So because the antibodies are not very long lived or they diminish. So it depends upon your antibody titers and based on the studies. So there is no fixed rule. If the antibodies remain there in the body, so you don't need booster. But if they are diminished, then you need booster.
So, what about vaccine?
See, the studies are going on right now. First, it started with a single dose, then found the antibodies are low, the second dose has come up. Now, based on the data, the blood samples available from
मैंने डबल हो गया फिर से
Ma'am, I think somebody, I'll just play it again.
for the company and for me also, right? But for some of the vaccine you can need booster doses, like particularly the case of tetanus toxoid, where you need in between boosters. Whenever you get wound or infection, you always take a booster. So because the antibodies are not very long lived or they diminish. So it depends upon your antibody titers and based on the studies. So there is no fixed rule. If the antibodies remain there in the body, so you don't need booster. But if they are diminished, then you need booster.
So, what about corona vaccine?
See, the studies are going on right now. First, it started with a single dose, then found the antibodies are low, so the second dose has come up. Now, based on the data, the blood samples available from the human who have been vaccinated and the persistence of the antibodies and the protection will decide whether we need booster every year or we are protected for lifelong or for couple of years. So that all depends on the human data based on the sample studies. So nobody can, there is no thumb rule. It's all your analysis of the human blood or the people who are vaccinated.
Can different vaccines be taken by different person in different doses?
No, if you have, because every company has a different molecule. If you have taken a vaccine from one manufacturer, so you have to take the booster dose from the same manufacturer, because no two companies are making the same molecule. Which I have during my presentation,
Yes.
I explained to you
Yes.
how many approaches are there. Some companies working on one approach, and other companies are working on a different approach. So the antibodies which have been produced, or when your body is exposed to the pathogen by vaccination, by inoculation, so it has been primed with that pathogen. So now if you take different vaccine, it may give a cross reaction. But if you have to use the same vaccine for booster dose, so that body can recognize and the antibodies can be increased, or antibody can go up. Okay. So you have to use the same vaccine.
Okay. So, you have already explained this in the presentation, but still for the students, what are the steps taken in preparation and release of the vaccine, and what is the duration for this?
So it again depends on product to product. Some product takes 3 to 4 weeks to produce, and then the testing takes months. Like there are sterility tests which takes 14 days. So once you start the test, after 14 days you come to know the sterility. Some are chemical tests which are completed in a day. Some are animal-based tests. Now the company, even the government and regulation are avoiding the animal-based tests. But earlier in some of the products, there were animal-based tests. They take 3 to 4 months. So it's product to product. But it minimum 14 to 15 days it takes to release any batch once it's produced. And production time, like about HIP, I will tell you, it is almost a 1 month time. If we start today, after 1 month the batch will be completed. But they are continuous production, so like work in tandem. So once the fermenter is used for one batch, after 3 days it is ready for the next batch. So there's a continuous work which is going on. So once the cycle has started, so you get regular production.
Okay. Do you think that medicine industry is prepared for another similar situation in this similar the situation to this in future?
Can you repeat the question?
Do you think that the medicine industry is prepared for another situation similar to this in future? Like this pandemic, what happened?
See, this is unfortunate, nobody can predict. But the preparations are always there. The governments are, all the governments, different nations are working. There are organizations who have been funding for different type of research. But this is like, this is a unique case. And epidemics are always a unique, nobody can predict. Like in 1913 or when swine flu came, that was also unexpected. The H1N1 came in 2009, that was unexpected. But the countries are, their health ministries always preparing themselves. They keep stock of the vaccine, they keep stocks of the various medicines which can be mandatory. Now there are orphan drugs category where the disease is not there, but if that disease comes, they keep motivating the manufacturers to keep piling. I will tell you the example of a chikungunya. So chikungunya has been funded by various organizations. CEPI is one of them. That's a Co-Alliance for Epidemic Preparedness Initiative. They have funded a lot of $1 million for that project, but the vaccine is not required. Just to keep ready, if there is an epidemic, it can be used. The technology, they have funded 2 companies in Europe so that they can keep the technology ready. So like this epidemic was totally unpredicted. Nobody can anticipate. Otherwise, countries, even WHO, they always review the data. They study the statistics from different countries, the disease burden. All the statistics are with the WHO, with all health ministries for every country. The countries are working on that. All health ministries, they are concerned about the people.
So why is there a difference in efficacy of the vaccine? Some are said to be 70% effective while others are 90%.
See, this is what the approach which I have told you during the what are the different approaches for developing a vaccine. You never know which will give you better protection. So if something gives you good protection, because there are different mechanisms. One is the surface protein which binds to the cell wall. There is a capsid protein which has to release it. So sometimes one particular vaccine component which you have chosen will give you better protection and it works very well, because sometimes what happens, there are mutations which takes place and they bypass the route, which is why I wanted to show you in the malaria. In spite of various approaches, the bacteria is so smart, that parasite is so smart, it always finds an alternative route. So there was Moxirix was the vaccine which was developed. People consider that particular surface protein is very important, but again the pathogen, the parasite has found a different pathway. Now they want to have a multiple approach, different components to be added. So nobody can predict the efficacy based on that. People can speculate and then they design the molecule, and it's only the field trial and how it responds to the human body that can predict. But 70% is also very good efficacy. Nothing to worry. It means 70% of the people are 100% protected. Okay.
Is there a difference between the Covishield, Covaxin, and Pfizer?
See, there are different approaches, which I told you. Covishield is the S protein, which is produced by chimpanzee adenovirus vector, which is a common cold flu virus. That is used as a carrier or vector. The Covaxin is a killed virus. It's a different approach. Now, Moderna or Pfizer is mRNA. They have produced the genetic information which will produce the S protein once it enters the cell. So these are different approaches. That is why the results are different, and that is why you have to stick to that particular vaccine.
So as you are aware that about the third wave which is going to come, don't know whether it's going to come or not, but is it going to affect the children or something like that? That is in the news.
No answer for particular that. It's only the health ministry. There are experts of the clinical with the clinical background. They are reviewing. They are studying. They are in touch with the regular updates from the various departments, various fields. So they know the exact. So it's only the government will give you the reply, which comes from the health ministry, what is happening, because they know the exact data.
So according to you, what are the precautionary measures to be taken by the children and the school to get back to normal offline classes? If possible?
See, the best way is get vaccinated all the people. Right now, it is not recommended for the children, but at least all the if more than 60% of the people are vaccinated, then it's called herd immunity. That effect will come. Herd immunity is that when the virus or the bacteria does not get host. The hosts are already protected because it moves from one person to the person, and if I am protected, I will not be a host to the virus or bacteria, so bacteria will not multiply. So that is why that herd immunity factor has to be very important, and it kills the disease. So that is there. Plus what the government recommendations are there: use the mask, wash your hands regularly, and keep yourself keep the distance and all those things. These are the only primary precautions which one can take and avoid it. But the best way is more than 60% of the population is vaccinated. It will help us.
So by when should we expect the vaccination for the children?
No answer. No answer to that.
And
It's
how
the
are
government can decide, because you see, India is a vast country. If you see, we are vaccinating. If you see the statistics, the data, almost one European country has been vaccinating in India every day. See, we are a very big country with big population. It is not a joke. I see the population statistics of various countries. There are hardly 3 million. It's like Pune will be a 2 country or 3 country equivalent population.
Yes.
See, I spoke to somebody. I said Pune is a small country. He said, what is the population? I said 6 million. He said 6 million, and you are saying it's a small country, small city. It's not a metro city. So that is the population burden which we have.
So how are the volunteers for the clinical trials decided?
See, these are there are clinical centers, approved labs. They identify people. Sometimes people offer themselves healthy volunteers. Once for the phase 1 trial is done, they check their blood, their profile, their medical records, whether they are fit to be used for the clinical studies. It is the human people. They offer themselves. Sometimes for the deadly diseases, the patients are used as the clinical trial based on its consent of the people. There are regulatory norms, there are ethical practices which have been followed, and consents are taken, and then the trials are done. It's a human being only, because this is it reaches the state before the toxicity is done on the animal model. So it's a very safe. One cannot just do the clinical trial without having the toxicity data in animal. There are labs which do the toxicity study. Based on the toxicity study, once it clears the toxicity studies, then the government gives the permission, or regulatory body gives the permission to do for the human trials. You cannot do the human trial without the toxicity data and the safety data. If it has not cleared the safety and toxicity data in animal, you will never get the permission. It's only which is safe, then only it goes for human trial. Otherwise, it doesn't go.
So is this vaccine what we have already taken valid against that Delta variant which is coming for the COVID, or something else?
Again, as per the news which I have also read, we do not have any scientific data at present. It's being evaluated. But the news, the media saying that Covishield is giving the protection.
Some are saying that Covaxin is getting a better protection against Delta.
See, till the research, see, there is one is media which is not authentic research.
Correct, yes.
There are scientific journals which are authentic research. So once the scientific journals are published and then becomes authentic, then you can believe. Otherwise, it is all media. You cannot believe on what media is saying, unless until scientific journals are publishing, which are the peer-reviewed journals, where the scientists, there are editors who are approving it, they are evaluating, and then they are confirming this. So once it is published in the scientific journals, then only you should believe it. Otherwise, these are all news which you hear one day or another.
So how far is that the influenza vaccine is effective to the children for
See, influenza you have to take shot every year.
every
Influenza.
year? Okay.
So it's because it keeps on mutating, and every year the strain changes. So in USA, every year you take a shot.
So and last, anything that you want to say to our students who are listening to you right now?
So I wish you all the best. Do well in your future endeavor, whatever you do. So don't worry. This is a bad time. It will go, and you keep yourself protected. Stay at home. Listen to your teachers. Listen to your parents, and do. This era has changed dramatically. The education system now you study at home on Zoom talk and everything. So it's a really different world altogether. Some of the children are really enjoying. Some people feel very bad, but don't worry, we have to protect ourselves for the better future.
Thank you.
So
Thank
how,
you so much.
how can you encourage the students to enter a field like you are in?
See, the thing is, it is your liking, what you like. If you want to be an engineer, or you want to be a doctor, or you want to be a commerce graduate, whatever your liking is there, pursue it and be determined. You want to follow it up, and you will succeed. If you are today half-hearted, today you listen to somebody, today you see Dhoni is playing very well, and then you want to become a Dhoni. Tomorrow you see Sania Mirza, she is playing very well tennis, and you want to follow the tennis, so you will be nowhere. So whatever is your passion, pursue the passion, and then you will succeed. So if you like to be a badminton player, pursue that. You will succeed. If you want to be a scientist, you do wholeheartedly, and you will succeed. So if you today you want, because you are influenced by somebody, and you say I want to become today, and tomorrow your goals has changed, so then you will not achieve. If whatever your goals are there, you follow your goals, you will succeed. So nobody can stop you. So that is my message.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
sir.
so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views with our students. Now, there is small glimpse on the corona vaccine. Coronavirus particles are virion that attaches to the surface of the cell with their spikes. That is what the S protein sir was talking about. Then pierces the cell and releases a strand of RNA. The genetic code it carries hijacks the cell machinery to make more virions. Virions are the baby viruses. We seek new targets. Now, the vaccine, we have seen it's a whole pathogen vaccine, subunit vaccine, and the mRNA vaccine that is in the market. Sir has already talked about it. These are some diseases. The red one shows that the research is still on, but there is no vaccine available till date. So it is that every disease, if it comes into picture, there are people working on it, but maybe the vaccine is produced and the vaccine is not produced, depending upon the notorious nature of the microorganism that causes the disease. These are the thank you so much, students, for your messages. We have rightfully put the messages in the card and have sent to the Serum Institute. You can see with special efforts the thank you card which was given to the Serum Institute. Thank you so much, teachers, for writing. Some glimpse of the institute. These are the bioreactors used for the vaccine production, the process vessels. Then you have the vaccine being packed up by filling up of vaccines and inoculation, you can say. Then you have these are some pictures that we have found out for the serum. We three went, Rima ma'am, then Lakshmi ma'am. Now I am delighted to take an opportunity to introduce our guest of honor, Dr. Tushar Lodha, who is a true example of hard work, persistence, dedication. So, sir,
Yes.
he yes, he is working as a scientist in National Center for Microbiology, NCCS Pune. He is involved in exploring microbial ecology of diverse habitats, especially anoxygenic phototropic bacteria, genome enrichment, and genome-based taxonomy. Some of his achievements: he has done his PhD from the Department of Plant Science, University of Hyderabad. He is a gold medalist. He has done his Master of Science in Biotechnology from Vishwabharati University, Shanti Niketan. He has also received the Young Scientist Award in 2017. He is a qualified UGC NET, that is with All India ranking 207. He has qualified GATE with All India ranking 68. He has total 36 publications, 33 peer reviews, 2 reviews, 1 book chapter, 562 total recitations, and so on. We are lucky, sir, that you are here with us to speak to our children.
Yeah. Thank you, Achal.
Yes. So can you please introduce or speak something to them first? Then we'll start with
Yeah.
the question answer session.
Yeah. I will just talk about how my journey and how I came. So I am basically from Nasik. It is a small village in Nasik district. So I started my journey from there, and today I am here. So first I completed my 10th and 12th from the Maharashtra State Board exams. That is the in a Marathi medium. So I just want to say that uh, it is not important your background. It is more important where you want to go. That is what I want to emphasize from here. So after 12th, I did my BSc in biotechnology from Vidya Pratishthan School of Biotechnology. It is in Baramati. Then I moved to Shanti Niketan, that is in West Bengal, where Miss Achal ma'am was my classmate, and we both were a classmate there. So we learned a lot from each other and from our teachers. So there, as I was interested in research, I gave exam, that is a UGC NET, that is University Grant Commission National Eligibility Test, and I qualified for that, and through that I joined for my PhD in University of Hyderabad under the guidance of Professor C.H. Venkatramana. He's a renowned taxonomist and biotechnologist of India. So there I work on pathways, bacterial pathways. I think 10th standard students might be studying various pathways like Krebs cycles and all those. So like that, I was studying synthetic pathway. There we have discovered a pathway in a bacteria called Alistrus. So we have elucidated the pathway, and we found out if that pathway is not there, how bacteria behaves. So in technically, we have removed that pathway from the bacteria, and we saw how bacteria behaves. So what is the function of that pathway in that organism? That is what we have studied in my doctoral research. So after that, I moved to Pune in National Center for Cell Science as a scientist. And from last 4 years, I am working as a scientist here, and I am working here on various group of bacteria, that is anoxygenic phototrophic bacteria. I will give a glimpse of that in my talk in a future. After then antimicrobial resistance bacteria, they are very much important in a clinical point of view, and working on various extremophilic organisms, the bacteria which are which can be grown at high temperature like 80 degree or which can grow at high salt concentration like 30% of NaCl, which is detrimental to any cells. So I work on such extremophilic organism, the bacteria which lives in an extreme environment like volcanoes, like deep vents and all those. So apart from that, I work on microbial ecology of marine habitats. We usually go for sampling to marine habitats like oceans and all those. We collect the deep samples and we explore the microbial samples from that particular uh, sample. So specialization is on phototrophic organism. So now you might be knowing that phototrophy is one of the most important process in the nature. So when the oxygen was not there on the earth, it was a phototroph, and I will say precisely, most of us know the bacteria, cyanobacteria or plant which do the photosynthesis, but there is very unexplored group of bacteria, that is purple sulfur bacteria. They are a bacteria which can grow without oxygen or which does not evolve the oxygen. So they are the one which are present before the cyanobacteria. So actually when evolution has started, or when the first organism was evolved, it was chemoautotrophic in nature. That is, they can harvest their energy from the chemicals. So autotrophy is they can harvest their own. They are not dependent on any external food. So we are heterotrophs. We depend on food. We want breakfast, lunch, dinner, and without that we cannot live. So like chemotrophs are the organism which depends on the chemicals, which harvest their energy directly from the chemicals. So then came into a picture photoautotrophs. In that, photo unoxygenic autotrophs, they will not evolve oxygen after photosynthesis. So if you have learned in photosynthesis, the final product is glucose plus oxygen. So but there are some phototrophs, or they are ancient phototrophs, I will say, that they does not evolve any oxygen. So after that, cyanobacteria got evolved, which has made the earth oxygenic. They have evolved a lot of oxygen, and it took almost millions of years to for cyanobacteria to make environment oxygenic. So likewise, then the photosynthesis has started in, because plant has evolved with the time, and then now we are in a world where we harvest solar energy. We harvest artificially the phototrophy into a beneficial product, like solar energy we use for lighting the lamps, for heating the water, and there are millions of application of solar energy. Actually, people are produce a food based on the solar energy. So that may be a future, I will say, that eat a food which is artificially synthesized from the photosynthesis, or with the help of light energy. So I work on a phototrophic organism, and I try to explore their benefits, how we can make use of bacteria to human benefits. Like they are known for quenching the radiations. Then they can be used as a food, as a single cell protein, and there are many more applications of phototrophic bacteria. With this, I think I will stop my introduction, and I think I will like to hear or interact with the students.
Thank you so much, sir. Children, you have any question? Kindly raise your hand. Don't speak together. Raise your hand. I'll call your name. Talk to sir directly. Okay. Yes, Soham. Kindly unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good afternoon, sir. My question to you would be, what made you decide that you wanted to pursue microbiology as compared to other forms of biology?
Actually, as I think Dr. Berry also suggested, it is your interest. Whenever you see, you know that you are interested in this, and you are not interested in this. So if you go to a ground and students are playing cricket, football, kho and so on, and you know that this is the game that you want to play. So it is mostly your research driven or your interest driven process. But I will just try to say other things also, because I feel microbiology is everywhere, starting from the time you wake up till you go to bed. You see microbiology everywhere. If I say in a very scientific way, that in a human body, actually the human cells are minority party and microbes are a majority party in our own body. So you cannot imagine any environment or any place or any human body or any animal body without microorganism. They are ubiquitous, and many of the body's process are driven by the microorganism, so which we are not actually aware of, or a lot of research is being carried out in that point of view. So I am always fascinated about how these tiny invisible monsters, or they are not always monsters, they are good, what we can say, they are good also. So how they drive our process. So I'm always interested in that, and I try to pursue that in my career also.
Thank you for your answer, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mithil. Kindly unmute.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I wanted to ask, sir, I had just recently read about the microorganism known as tardigrade. So it is said that it can, and earlier Barry sir also told that it can be, means it can survive in many extreme conditions. Or sir, you also told that. So means it was also found out that it can live in space for 40 days, and even means be alive in lava and something like that. So just wanted to ask if it's true, or means can it be a potential danger for humans?
Yeah. Mithil, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So,
Mithil.
Mithil, this is very, I will say it is very good question. And we as a scientist, we are trying to find out answers, that how this bacteria, the extremophiles, we say to it, because it lives in an extreme condition. So we try to study how or what are the mechanism it used to live in that condition. So as I said, not all the bacteria are harmful. So if some bacteria are able to live in extreme conditions, so we should not be worried that it will be detrimental to us. First, so it is a beneficial to us. So it will guide us that how we should live in an extreme condition. Is it or not? So it will teach us that you produce so and so protein, so you will live. Now you might have heard about the global warming. So if global warming increases and we have to survive, or we have to live in an extreme condition, like let's say 45 degrees Celsius. So that organism, how that organism is living in such extreme conditions, the information drawn from that organism may help us to adapt ourselves or to develop a product, so that we will also be able to survive in such extreme conditions. And actually there are many more applications of extremophilic organisms, because many of the industrial processes are carried out in extreme conditions. So actually extremophiles are very good target to study and to draw applications from them. So many of the industry right now, they want extremophilic organism to be studied for industrial applications.
Yes, sir. And I had one more doubt also, sir. Sir,
Okay. Others are also waiting, beta.
Okay.
So I'll take some more questions. If there are no questions, I'll take you back. Okay. Yes, Preena.
Okay.
Yes, so I just have a question. Sir, so you said that these photosynthetic bacteria, these have applications in radiation. So how exactly?
Yeah, as they are phototrophic organism, they are known for quenching or absorbing the radiations. So not radiation is nothing but a wavelength. So photosynthetic light is also a radiation. So as they can absorb the light, they can also absorb the radiations which are coming out from the radioactive chemicals. So they are known to have a bioremediation. Is a scientific word for used for to reduce the radiation effect or to reduce the pollutant which is present in the environment. So they absorb this radiation with the help of the photosynthetic pigments they harbor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Prina. Yes, Priya, children, we can't take much questions because we have the time constant with us. So, and even sir is also busy. We have just taken his precious time. So I'll not take much questions, maybe two questions, 2 to 3 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
May I ask my question?
Yes, please, Priya.
So now as students, first we are just known to 3 branches of science: chemistry, physics, biology. Later if we take science, we come across these detailings of biology. So like in your process, like now a lot of research happens in this career. So during researching on these things, sometimes we don't tend to get outputs of what we are researching for. So during this process, did you feel demotivated? Like there are chances of feeling demotivated, feeling that I've done a mistake, I've taken this.
Yeah. Priya, you are very honest, and this question we also feel so many times. But life is all about this. That you are interested. Every day you have to drive yourself to achieve something in what you are interested in. So the day will come, or the day usually come to us that we try to do something and we don't get results.
Yeah.
Not a one-day process getting a results. It is a continuous effort, and every day you have to try to do something to better yourself so that you will get a result one day. So science is also like that. You say the research is many times like this, that you try to do something and you don't get a result. So you should just try to focus on what are your mistakes and try to improve that each day, that you are doing less and less mistakes. The day will come that you are not doing mistake and you will get the result.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So patience is more required in this field, isn't it?
Discipline, perseverance, and patience. These are the 3 characters you need in this field.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, sir. Naman?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible properly?
Yes.
Sir, I just had one question. So, as you said that you have observed and looked into many microorganisms over the time, right? And many of them you might have seen some evolution. So, in relation to them, is there any chance for evolution in humans too?
In humans?
Yes, sir. In the future, like how microorganisms evolve.
Yeah, every living organism, it is a natural process of evolution. So now actually I will give a simple example. When I was a kid I never used online system. So I see that you have evolved to this system. So yes, human do evolve. The virus, what you are listening, the variants, they are evolutionary products of the beginning organism. What you are listening today, that Delta variant, Delta plus variant, they are the evolutionary products. Likewise, every living organism, be it a small organism, small microorganism, or a human being, or anyone, it evolves with the time. Only thing is that the natural evolution takes a lot of time, and it takes at least generations of human to evolve for one character. So with the microbes, their lifespan is very small, so you can see the evolution in 10 years. But for human, you have to observe for 200 years, and then you will see one evolution in human being.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Just to add one thing, sorry to interrupt you. See, these biological systems, these viruses and bacteria, they mute very fast. Their life cycle is a couple of hours. So in a day, there are 10, 15 or 20 generation has taken place. That is why the mutations are so fast. And what Dr. Tushar has said, human generation is a lifespan is very big. And that is why it takes 200, 300 for any mutation, because the multiplication factor, the generation factor is very, very fast in biological, particular viruses and bacteria. In our, there's a doubling, it's called doubling time. Isn't it, Dr. Tushar?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So doubling time, basically the one generation has passed and the second generation has come in a couple of hours, in a few minutes. So that is why the mutations are so fast. Otherwise, in human, you see the doubling cycle is 30 to 40 years. Like when you grow, you will become adult and become parent, and then the next generation comes. So that is what is the next generation. So that is why in human, it's a very, very long period. So don't worry. So there won't be any much mutations until our lifespans are there. Okay. So that is the case with the pathogens. So that is why they become resistant, and they become resistant to the drug. The vaccine becomes ineffective. And that is why scientists like Dr. Tushar is working, and a lot of other people are working to develop new products into vaccine. So that is why they are needed, and they are very much in demand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Tushar and Dr. Suresh Berry. Your appearance has really made a difference in my students' life, I should say. We have, now I request our principal, sir. So would you like to speak something, sir?
Yeah, I would just like to thank the team of Serum Institute. More than the scientific data that you've given to our children, I think the way you've kind of changed focus in their future, I think, and you've thrown light on the possibilities of what could happen. I'm very grateful to all of you. As it is, you're doing yeoman service to the society with your work, and thank you very much for the vaccines that you've given our society and given the country. On behalf of the school and the management and everybody else, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you immensely for giving us the opportunity to having studied a fraction of your contribution to the society. Thank you so much. I would also at this moment of life, yeah.
On the behalf of Serum Institute, I thank you all, and very well organized Zoom talk today, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was informative for me also, so I also learned so many things. Your teachers have worked very hard to compile the things and present it very well, and I also enjoyed listening to Dr. Ladda, wonderful speaking by Dr. Tushar Ladda. We will meet sometime and interact with you, Dr. Ladda.
Yeah, sure. And
thank you.
To thank everyone, the team of Powar Public School. And I also like to thank Dr. Suresh Berry, because I have also attended the tour of Serum. So I thank both of the team, and thank you for giving this opportunity to interact with the future generation of scientists.
Yeah, I hope children would have enjoyed it, and it was more informative for them to see that they are in the safe hands. Nothing to worry. It's a passing cloud. It will go. Don't worry.
Thank you for your kind words. Now I request Anjana Nambiar to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Na choraharyam, na cha rajaharyam, na bhratribhajya, na cha bharakari. Vyaye krute vardhat eva nityam. Vidyadhanam sarvadhana pradhanam. It cannot be stolen by thieves, nor can it be taken away by the kings. It cannot be divided among brothers, nor does it have any weight. If spent regularly, it keeps growing. The wealth of knowledge is the most superior wealth of all. With this shloka of application of the gain knowledge, I, Anjana Nambiar, can't wait more to express my gratitude to our distinguished guests of honor who have shared their ocean of knowledge with us, and thus enabling us to understand the consistent and persistent efforts put in by our scientists to constantly give us the best. We, the students of Class 10, are grateful to Mr. Bhushan Apte and Mr. Mahendra Inge from the Human Resource Department, Mr. Ramesh Patil, the Executive Director, Mr. Sameer Mane, the Deputy Director, and Mr. Shankar Karbhor from the Vaccine Manufacturing Department of the Serum Institute, who were instrumental in organizing an interaction with the world-famous scientist, Dr. Suresh Berry. We could unfold many unanswered questions. Dr. Berry's contribution. Thank you, Dr. Berry, for helping us understand in detail the process of making a vaccine and for being a guiding light for us. I take this privilege to express our gratitude to Dr. Tushar Lodha for spending his valuable time with us, enlightening us with his power bank of knowledge. He has paved a new world of opportunities in creating a better tomorrow. I would like to thank our principal, Mr. Devendra Kumar, for organizing this interesting visit to the Serum Institute. Last but not the least, we are indebted to the virtual tour team for not only accumulation of information, but also systematized presentation of the data. My special thanks to all my friends for being patient listeners and active participants too. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Anjana. Now, I'd like to say this quote is I have taken from the Serum Institute thing only. The end is not yet in the sight, but I remain cautiously optimistic. Underline cautiously. You have to be cautious. That is the most important thing, whatever be the circumstances. Thank you so much for being there. I again thank Dr. Tushar and Dr. Suresh Berry to be there with us for such a lovely program. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Your
Yeah,
presence made the program successful. Thank you so much.
it's
Thank
our
you, sir.
pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
The surprise, and it's a pleasant surprise to see
No,
you.
today just I got a message. Some our colleague, Mr. Karl Bohr, had come and he said, "Okay, then send me the link. I would attend it." So I really enjoyed thoroughly, and it was a good work done by you. So many things you have gathered and presented in a very systematic way. Really wonderful, really. And adding Dr. Ladda was a really great book. He is expert in the field, and I learned so many things when he was talking, and it was new. You know, I'm an organic chemist, so I'm not a hardcore biologist. So I learned so many things when he was explaining some new terminology. So it was good for me also. So science is always a learning. You are always a student of a science. You are not an expert in science. You are a student. Thank you.
Right, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
See
Thank you, Dr. Tushar, also for coming in, giving your valuable time, precious time, and coming and helping, addressing our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you all, and all the best to the students to the science or any field that they are interested. So it is always about your interest that should drive you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, you can end the meeting. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. So I'll end
Yes,
up
ma'am.
here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you for being there. Yes.